craft legislation that covers and affects you and everyone in the district. We'll move on to the district positions. And, you know, just a word about that. We have a map of Duval County here, which shows the districts. The lines are drawn rather squiggly, is the best I can tell you with that, and it looks very much like in certain areas there's a kind of a carving process that arrived at these districts, and we don't know exactly the principles involved, but that will be redrawn in 2011. And John, you mentioned to me earlier that what we recently voted on, Amendments 5 and 6, will not cover the county-wide council districts. And so we are looking for city council, essentially, to redraw these.
That's correct. And although there is a charter provision that says that our 14 city council districts are supposed to be as compact as possible, as well as contain, insofar as it's practical, the same number of voters in each district. As you pointed out, there are districts which, for example, jump over the river, and in one case that jumps the river twice. That would not be something you expect to find after the Fair Districts Amendment passed with respect to state representative or Senate seats or congressional seats, since natural boundaries like rivers are supposed to be considered under the Fair Districts Amendments. Hopefully the City Council will also consider those natural boundaries in drawing our new districts, but they're not required to under the charter.
And the best way to know what district you're in is to look at your voter card. You'll find on the voter card not only your district, but your voter number and your polling place on election day. You need to bring your driver's license to that, to polling on election day, by the way. They don't use the voter card. But if you look at your voter card, you can see what city council district you're in and relate it to what we're doing here, talking about the individual districts.
There's also a method for finding that on DuvalElections.com, which is the Supervisor of Elections website. Jerry Holland, who is the current supervisor, is presently running unopposed, but again, there may be changes in that prior to qualifying. But on his website, you can enter your address and discover what district you're in and what precinct you would be in, as well as giving you all of the other elected officials that you're entitled to vote for.
You can do a lot of useful things on that site. You can ask for an absentee ballot, for example, and learn about all past and future elections.
And many of these candidates have statements that are on that site, photographs and statements. They have the opportunity to put those there. They don't all utilize that opportunity. So you can learn something about the candidates from that. You can also look at their campaign contribution reports and see what they've been spending money on in their campaign as well.
Where they're getting their money, too.
Yes, which is more interesting frequently than what they're spending it on.
Great. Conrad, do you have any comments on that or anything to offer? Would you mind reading City Council District 1 candidates?
Yeah, the only comment I was going to have was about the configuration of some of these, how really ridiculous the configuration of some of these districts is. District 7 is probably one of the worst offenders, the way it jumps back and forth across the river, back and forth across the St. Johns, Trout River, and Arlington River. It's very difficult for the current councilman to stay in touch with all the areas of that elongated district.
And District 11 is simply huge in landmass.
Yes.
I guess we're covering a lot of agricultural interests with that, but campaigning in that district is just, it's got to be incredibly difficult because it stretches from one end of the county goes all along the top of it and then cuts back in along the bottom at the other end of the county.
It stretches from the ocean front and the north end of Atlantic Beach, Seminole Beach, to all the way around to the totally agricultural area out around Maxville.
And the landfill.
And the landfill, Trail Ridge.
So maybe some redistricting is in order there. Would you care to read those?
Yeah.
District 1?
City Council District 1, Lindsay Brock and Clay Yarborough. District 2, William H. Bishop and Stephen Heckel. District 3, Richard Clark and Mario Rubio. District 4, Tillman Casper and Don Redmond. District 5 has 5 people running: Lori Boyer, Jack Daniels, Steve Hires, Robert Pritz van Volkenberg, and Derek Washington. District 6 is Matt Schellenberg versus John D. Jack Webb, the current president of the council. District 7, Johnny Gaffney versus Mark McCullough. District 8, E. Denise Lee, unopposed. District 9, Warren Jones, unopposed. District 10, Reginald Brown, unopposed. District 11, Tom Bain, James Big Jim Breland, Ray Holt, Doug Moore. District 12, Joe Andrews, LaGarl Bates, Doyle Carter, Jim Davis, David A. Taylor. District 13, Danny Beckton, William Bill Gilliford, Dave Smith, Vanessa Williams. District 14, Kendall G. Bryan Jr., Jill Dame, Shelton Hall, Jim Love, Ron Petz, and Greg Holea Rochelle.
Very good. And so that is your list of district candidates, wrapping up. And so now you know all the positions, and you've seen at least a preliminary view of the people running in those positions for our city elections in 2011. Getting back to the dates, you've got some time to figure out who you vote for, because March 22nd is primary, general is May 17th. There are 3 ways to vote. You can vote by mail if you request a ballot from the supervisor of elections beforehand. You can vote early at various libraries about 2 weeks before the actual election date, and you can vote at your precinct polling place on election day. So it's never been easier to vote, and if you're not registered, why not? Go ahead and get registered and get ready to vote in our city elections in 2011, and you can make a difference. John?
Well, let me point out a few things that are unique about the municipal elections. Unlike the elections that we just had this summer and fall with an actual primary and then a general election based on parties, we have what's called a unitary election system. What this means is, for example, if all dozen or more candidates for mayor do in fact qualify, that you'll be, whatever your political party is, come next March, you'll be presented with a ballot that includes the names of all of those mayoral candidates who have in fact qualified. It'll list whether or not they're no party affiliation, or they're a Republican or a Democrat or some other political party, but there'll likely be 2 or more of each political party listed on this ballot, showing a dozen names.
For mayor.
For mayor. Your job is to pick one of those names. If, in fact, one of those people does receive a majority of the votes in that election in March, they'll be elected mayor. If, as is far more likely, no one receives a majority, then the top 2 finishers out of that list Whether they, and they could both be Republican, they could both be Democrats, they could both be no party affiliation.